Hello, this is Tony Heller from realclimatescience.com, setting the record straight about science. In this video, I'm going to show you how differently CDC handled the 2009 H1N1 pandemic. The 2009 pandemic was widely known as the swine flu, and it had some very serious symptoms similar to COVID-19. Life-threatening, starts like regular flu, and then lungs stop functioning. And the virus spread outside of the lungs. You don't like to see a flu virus move outside the lung. Earl Brown, influenza expert, University of Ottawa. Like COVID-19, the 2009 pandemic may have killed more than 500,000 people around the world. But there was one very big difference. The vast majority of COVID-19 deaths are people over 65 years old. But the 2009 H1N1 flu was the exact opposite. 80% of the deaths were people under the age of 65 years old. So unlike the current epidemic, the 2009 epidemic was actually a very large threat to the working age population. Yet we never locked down, and few people even remember the epidemic. This 2009 article from CBS News is where it really gets interesting. In late July, the CDC abruptly advised states to stop testing for H1N1 flu and stop counting individual cases. The rationale given for the CDC guidance to forego testing and tracking individual cases was, why waste resources testing for H1N1 flu when the government has already confirmed there's an epidemic? This is the exact opposite of what CDC's done with COVID-19 and was obviously a political decision. The most likely rationale was that testing was making people afraid and was going to slow down our path to herd immunity. It was probably a very wise decision. If you look at what Sweden did during the current epidemic, they did a minimal amount of testing because they know that testing makes people crazy. Now let's compare that to what Dr. Fauci and the CDC have been doing during the current epidemic. This time around, CDC massively ramped up testing. It's going to be very disturbing, Fauci says. COVID cases could surge by 100,000 a day. Obviously they wanted it to be disturbing, and look at that pleased look on his face. Young people across the country are lined up for hours to get tested for a disease which they have no symptoms of and for which they're at very low risk. That's not very healthy behavior, and it's not something Dr. Fauci should be encouraging. In 2009, the CDC understood this and they stopped testing completely. It appears unlikely now that he's going to get up to 100,000 cases a day despite the massive increase in testing. I hope he's not too disappointed by that. But the politics are going extremely well for him. Despite his massive screw-ups and his failure to stop Democratic governors from sending sick people to nursing homes, the Washington Nationals are going to have him throw out the first pitch at their home opener instead of the President of the United States. The massive increase in testing is exactly the opposite of what CDC did in 2009 when Barack Obama was president. Additionally, last month, public health experts condoned massive gatherings of protesters, which was the exact opposite of what they'd been telling people to do for the previous 2.5 months. Dr. Fauci never said a word warning people not to go to these protests, but he repeatedly warned people not to go to Trump rallies. After these massive protests came a very large increase in infections, which are now being used in political warfare against the President of the United States. CDC's behavior in 2009 when there was a Democratic president made sense, but their behavior in 2020 under a Republican president was very different. We have 40 million people unemployed now in the United States, and a large part of it is due to Fauci's incompetence. Toto doesn't like that. Visit him on the web at realclimatescience.com. He's been pulling back the curtain on junk science and propaganda for a long time.